Okay, so I am about to start my Algebra 2 lesson. It's pretty outside, so probably I'm going to have no one watching live. But that's okay because I'm going to get this video done and I'm going to go out and enjoy outside too. Oh, Mary, am I going to teach you some Algebra 2? Does that look blurry or can you see it okay? Are you going to make Anthony learn something? I'm going to wait just another minute and then I will get started. Okay, so if any of you viewed the first lesson, we had started factoring. And the first lesson that we did for Algebra 2 was factoring out the GCF. Now, we're going to factor another way because our problem's going to look a little different. We may not have a GCF in between our expressions. So we're going to be factoring quadratic trinomials. We already learned that quadratic means you have a degree of 2 in your problem. A trinomial has 3 terms in the problem. And this is factoring quadratic trinomials with a leading coefficient 1. So remember the standard form that we looked at the other day was ax squared plus bx plus c for a standard form quadratic polynomial. When it says the leading coefficient is 1, it means that this number right here in front of x squared is 1, which means you won't see a number. So you're going to have a problem that's just like x squared plus something. And we're going to learn to factor those. And these are really going to be easy. Before we factor them, though, I want to go back and review. Hey, Hayden. We are factoring, Hayden. If you looked at the video on Monday, we learned how to factor with the GCF, and this is just another way to factor. All of these problems are going to be trinomials, which means that there are 3 terms. The leading coefficient, which is the number in front of our quadratic term, is going to be 1. And before we can start factoring, I want to review multiplying with the FOIL method. We did this, a while back. But it plays an important role in factoring because it's kind of backwards of what we'll be doing. But I just want to review this so you can see where our answers come from. I'm going to sneeze in just a minute, so... Sorry. Okay. So, look at this first one. We're going to review when you have 2 binomials and you multiply them together using the FOIL method. Remember, FOIL stands for first, outside, inside, last. And so when we, whenever we multiply these, we multiply the first terms together, x times x, which is x to the second, because you add your exponents. And then you multiply the outsides together, x times 4, and you get 4x. And you multiply the insides together, 3 times x, which is 3x. And then you multiply the last terms together in each parentheses, 3 times 4, which is going to be 12. And remember, then the outsides and the insides usually add together. In this case, it'll make 7x. So your answer is x squared plus 7x plus 12. And what I want you to notice whenever we do these three problems for review is notice this number here at the end, 12. Notice the factors up here in the parentheses. And then notice the number in the middle, 7. And also look back to those two numbers. And see if you notice anything after we do all three of these review problems. So here we're going to multiply. Let me pull my chair up because I'm having to stand up. Here we're going to multiply times first, which is going to be x times x. That gives you x to the second. Multiply the outsides together, x times negative 3, and that gives you a negative 3x. Multiply the insides together, negative 6 times x, and you get negative 6x. And multiply the last times the last together, negative 6 times negative 3, and you get positive 18. And then again, you add your outsides and insides, these two here, together, and you get negative 9x. So your answer is x to the second minus 9x plus 18. And notice in the parentheses, these two numbers at the end. And then notice this 18 at at the end of our trinomial. And then notice the number negative 9 in the middle. And then we're going to do one more review. Remember, first times first is x times x, which is going to be x to the second. Multiply the outsides together, x times negative 1, and you get negative x, negative 1x, which is negative x. And then 9 times x, which is a positive 9x. And then last times last, 9 times negative 1 is negative 9. These two in the middle can combine because they're like terms. Negative 1x plus 9x is positive 8x. So you get x to the second plus 8x minus 9. Once again, notice the last number in our answer, the trinomial. Notice that last number. And look at these two numbers at the end of our parentheses. And then notice the 8. And then look at these two numbers. And hopefully, I hope that you can kind of see a pattern. Here, 3 times 4 is 12, and 3 plus 4 is 7. Negative 6 times negative 3 is positive 18, and negative 6 plus negative 3 is negative 9. 9 times negative 1 is negative 9, and 9 minus 1 is 8. So you're going to need to use that pattern that you just saw there that I pointed out to you in factoring. Because what factoring is, we already learned in our first lesson, factoring is just showing what you multiply together to get an answer. So now we're going to be given the answer. Like we're going to be given this in these problems that we do today. We're going to be given the trinomial. And we've got to go backwards and tell what the two binomials were that were multiplied. All right, so we're going to be going backwards. That's why I wanted to review the FOIL method, because this is kind of like the FOIL method backwards that we're going to be doing. And that's what this says right down here. Let me scoot this up for a minute. Factoring trinomials is like doing the FOIL method backwards. You're given the answer, and then you have to tell what two binomials to use to multiply. For example, if this is your problem, if this is your trinomial that you're given, and you're told to factor that, that means I want to know what two binomials I use to multiply those together to get this answer. In all of these that we do today, we already said that in the lesson title, the number in front of x squared is going to be 1. So you don't have to worry about that number. It's always going to be 1, which means in our parentheses, in these kind of trinomials, it's just going to be that variable to the first power. X times x is x squared. So you're just going to take an x out of that x squared and put it in front of this parentheses. And then you're going to take an x out of that x squared and put it in this parentheses. And that's how all of these are going to start out. Then what you need to do is jump down to the last term in the trinomial, and it's a positive 6. So what you're doing there is you're looking for factors of 6 to go here at the last of our parentheses to multiply together to get 6. And there's going to be usually, several options. In this case, to get 6, you can either do 1 times 6 or you can do 2 times 3. And what you want to do is pick the factors, pick the pair that goes together that's going to multiply to give you the 6, but they're also going to add up to give you that 5. So that lets us know that we want to use 2 and 3. So to get a positive 6, both the 2 and the 3 need to be the same sign, because the only way to multiply and get a positive is to multiply two signs that are the same, either two negatives or two positives. So we're going to multiply by 2 times 3 to get 6. They're both going to be positive because when we add them, we want to get positive 5. The way that you check it is now just use your FOIL method to multiply it back together and make sure this is your answer. So like x times x is x to the second. You want to check your outsides, x times 3, which is 3x, and your insides, 2 times x, which is 2x. And when you add those together, you're supposed to get that 5x, which we do. And then the last times the last, the 2 times 3 is 6. So your final answer then is going to be those two parentheses, x plus 3 times x plus 2. And it doesn't matter really which order you go in. X plus 2 times x plus 3. You could have done it x plus 3 times x plus 2. That doesn't matter. But that's what we're doing today. It's going to be easy. I'm going to do several examples, and I pretty much guarantee you'll understand it by the time I get to the last example. All right, here we go. Let me make sure that's in view. All right, look at example 1. It says factor x squared plus 7x plus 10. So remember, this trinomial, we want to figure out what two binomials we multiply together using the FOIL method will give us x squared plus 7x plus 10. So I always start out by just putting my two parentheses down, because every answer that you get today is going to be two binomials side by side that you're multiplying together. Then go ahead, and all of these, you're going to have your variable split apart in the front of each parentheses. X times x is x squared. Now you want to jump to the end of the trinomial, the 10. And you want to know what factors of 10 will add up to be 7. Well, if you don't know that, it will help you to write your 10 down, and underneath it, just show all the factors that you multiply in pairs to get 10. 1 times 10, 2 times 5. And you want to select the pair that adds up to give you 7, which is 2 and 5. And it's all positive. You want to get a positive 10 at the end, so these two signs have to be the same. You want to get a positive 7 when you add them, so you just want them to both be plus. So it's going to be plus 2 and plus 5. Once you've got your numbers in there, make sure, just go back and say 2 times 5 equals 10, that checks. And 2 plus 5 equals 7, that checks. Everything else takes care of itself. So that is your answer, x plus 2 times x plus 5. Again, if you had put x plus 5 times x plus 2, if your parentheses were backwards from mine, that's okay. It gives you the same exact result. All right, example 2. Notice now the sign in the middle is minus, but we've still got a plus 15 at the end. And that's really important to notice, because if you have a plus at the end, like plus 10, plus 15, that means the two factors that you select have to have the same sign. They either have to both be plus, like we did here with plus 2 and plus 5, or they have to both be minus, like they're going to be with this one, because we've got to get a minus 8 or a negative 8. So I'm going to start by putting my parentheses down side by side. Go ahead and put your x and your x, because x times x is x to the second. And now we need the factors of 15. The factors of positive 15, they're going to add up to be negative 8. Again, it may help. You don't have to do this step. I just do it to help students kind of see. I need to move that over. I just do this part to help students see which factors to choose. Sometimes they don't know all the factors of that number, and really, if you have a hard time with dividing, this will be probably hard for you. Just use a calculator. Start with 1 and the number itself, like 1 times 15. And then just see what other numbers divide into 15. 2 won't go into 15. 3 does. 3 times 5 is 15. And I believe that's all. We'll just start over then with 5. So that's it. Now you want to get a positive 15 when you put these factors in, but you want to get a negative 8. In order to get a negative 8, that means both of the factors are going to have to be negative. It's going to have to be negative 3 times negative 5 to get positive 15, and negative 3 plus negative 5 to get negative 8. So you just put in minus 3 and minus 5. That is your answer. Again, if you wanted to check, you just take these two parentheses and you use the FOIL method and multiply them together, like we did in the review at the beginning of the video. And this is the trinomial that you'll get for your answer. Okay, so let's look at example 3. At some point, I hope to get students on here live so I can have some interaction. Y'all can ask questions. Right now, I'm just teaching to myself. I'm hoping people are going to go back and look at the video, though. Okay, we have x squared minus 9x plus 20. We're going to factor that, so I'm going to go ahead and put my two parentheses down. I know in the front, I'm going to use x and x. I know I'm trying to get a positive 20 when I multiply these two numbers, and I'm trying to get a negative 9 when I add them. So hopefully you already know what those two factors are. If not, come over here and just write your last term down and write all the factors that you know of that 20. So we'll start with 1 times 20. You have 2 times 10. 3 won't go into 20. 4 times 5 is 20. 6 won't, 7 won't, 8 won't, 9 won't, 10. We're back to 10. So we've already used 10. So that's all the factors of 20. Now remember, you want to select the pair that adds to be negative 9. So that means this 4 and this 5 have to have negatives with them. Negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20. And negative 4 plus negative 5 is negative 9. So you just fill it in the parentheses. Minus 4, minus 5. And once again, I'm going to repeat it. I know if I was at school, some people wouldn't be listening, so I'd have to repeat things. It does not matter if you had put x minus 5 in front, that would be fine. It doesn't matter about the order of your parentheses. That is your answer. And now, all three of the examples we've done have had positives at the end. Now, these two, we have negatives at the end. And what that means is the two factors inside our parentheses have to have opposite signs. We'll have to have one plus and one minus. And I'll show you how that works with these. Let's go ahead and do part A first. Remember, you can go ahead and put your two parentheses in. You can go ahead and split up the x squared into x times x. And now you want to know the factors of negative 18 to put at the end of each parentheses. Let's just worry about 18 first. Don't have to put a negative with it when we're getting these factors over here. We'll just put 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6. Those are all the different choices for the pairs of factors to get 18. Now remember, what we're trying to get is positive 7 when we put our two factors in. And also remember that one of these that I've got side by side, like the 2 and the 9, one of those has to be negative, one has to be positive. If we were going to use 3 and 6, one would have to be positive, one would have to be negative. Anytime you're trying to get a negative answer, a negative product, you're going to have one positive and one negative factor. Now, we're supposed to get a positive 7. So if this 9 and 2, I can look at that and tell that if you subtract those, you get 7. So I'm going to use those two. If this were a positive 9 and a negative 2, when you multiply those, you do get negative 18, because one negative when you multiply makes a negative. When you add them, remember your answer is always the sign of the larger number. So we want our larger number to carry the sign that's in the middle. So you have a negative 2 plus 9, which is a positive 7, and that's what you want. So I'm going to put in minus 2 and plus 9. And then once you've got those numbers in there, just go back in your head and check by multiplication and addition to see if you get these two numbers. Negative 2 times 9 is negative 18. And negative 2 plus 9 is positive 7. So that all checks. That is your answer. X minus 2 times x plus 9. And then our last one. We have x squared minus 2x minus 24. And we're going to factor that trinomial. So I'm going to put my 2 parentheses down. You want to split your x's. X times x is x squared. And now we're looking for the factors of negative 24 to put here at the end of each parentheses that are going to subtract, add or subtract, to get my negative 2. So you have, I'm just going to come over here and put there's several factors of 24. People sometimes get confused with 24s. We've got 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, and 4 times 6. Now remember, we want to get a negative 24, which means one of these numbers in each pair has to be negative. We also want to take our pair and get a negative 2 when we add them together. So let's look for ones that have a difference of 2. This 4 and 6 have a difference of 2. So we want to get a negative 2 when we add them. That means our larger number, 6, needs to be negative. So 4 is going to have to be positive. So we'll say plus 4 minus 6. And then just check to make sure that your numbers work with what you were supposed to get. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. That checks. And 4 minus 6, positive 4, and negative 6 gives you negative 2. So that checks, and that is the answer. I believe that is the last example. It is. This is the assignment that goes along with that. IXL, now look, we're going back to Algebra 1, to the Algebra 1 lesson in IXL, because the Algebra 2 lesson on this gets it jumps, to pretty advanced level pretty fast. And I want to make sure that you understand this before we get to the more advanced level. So, Algebra 1, AA4, make sure you're under Algebra 1, AA4, SMART score of an 80. So do this, try to do this today. If you didn't do the assignment from the first video, you need to do that. You need to try to do that and this. And then you'll be ready for our next lesson, which I'll probably go ahead and do it tomorrow. I'm not sure. I'll let y'all know later. Comment with questions if you don't understand something. I would also like for you to comment that you understand it. Just some kind of interaction, because I miss y'all. Take care. Go enjoy the sunshine. Bye.